Everyone grab an agenda and
I did not. Thank you, Dan.
We're carrying for the phone?
It's right there.
So we need one. It's two different papers.
Oh, two different papers.
So, one, two, keep passing them.
Keep passing this down.
Thank you.
Pass it down.
Keep pass one to Mark.
Karen's got one? I've got, yeah. One more.
Thank you.
Yep. We could share. It's kind of fair.
Now, does everybody know, that the last time Mark was at a working group, he had a stroke?
What?
In the parking lot.
Yeah.
So I want everybody to be aware of that.
So can we not talk about anything too stressful?
No, we can talk about whatever we need to talk about. It'll be all right. Let's talk about state permits. That's what it's.
Oh, that's what I've been doing all day. Why can't we talk about it? Okay.
Okay, well, it's 3:30, so let's begin. So as many of you know me, I'm Vandy. I work with planning and building. Sarah couldn't join us today, but we do have Amanda. She'll be taking our notes. There's no one on, oh wait, panelists, does that mean one? Is that us? Okay. So let's do a quick around the room. I know we all really know each other.
This is my daughter, Kayla. Hi. Kayla Harrison. She's working with One Feather Ranch. So she's going to help me out. And I'm Kim.
And I'm Chris.
Karen Byers.
Marvin Levin.
Julia Carrera.
Awesome. So this meeting is really kind of, I think it's going to be our last meeting unless the board wants us to discuss more or kind of talk about the issues we bring back to them. So today I want us to consolidate the items that we do want to bring to the board for direction. So I just kind of went through mine and Mary Lynn's giant thing here of notes, and I've come up with what seems to be the recurring issues. So if we want to start discussing these, and we can add, we can take away, but by the end of today I do want to have a list that we can bring to the next board meeting. Or does it work like that?
What?
Do we have to scedule ourselves with the board?
Yeah, and it might be full.
So then the next meeting that we can get on.
Yeah.
So would everyone like to take a minute to kind of look at everything, or do we just want to jump in?
I want to jump in.
Okay.
I bet you know what I want to jump in about.
Distribution?
Yeah. I would like to add to distribution, including C1 as a zoning. And this is why. C1, so storage traditionally is in C2, because traditionally storage has been some kind of chemical-oriented storage. But this is storage of a food product, a consumer consumption product. And doesn't in our ordinance now for my business allow my business C1? I had asked that.
No, it does not.
City, be quiet.
Hi, this is Hannah.
Hi, Hannah. Welcome.
Thank you.
So-
Sorry I couldn't be there.
No worries.
My point is, we need more available space for distributors, manufacturers, not necessarily micro businesses, but those too. Because even though I'm not as up to par on how many parcels are available, I know a lot of them don't have the proper setback, and I know we're going to be removing some of that, like the church setback.
Correct.
But I really want to open up zoning, and we had talked about this, for the non-cultivation businesses so that we can get them here.
And then
In the long term, will be cost effective for our farmers, be them corporate or small.
And then, so I have C1, and then I had also actually had my own conversation with Julia about allowing it in ag as well, considering, wineries have their own kind of self-distribution allowed. And they bring in grapes from not their vineyards a lot of the time. So is that something that would interest people, having ag open up? And again, these are all considerations for the board, so it's not guaranteed. We can't guarantee anything, but is that something that would interest people?
Does that combine with event permits so that, if someone wanted to have on ag land?
So this is, right now we're just talking distribution.
Yeah, but I was trying to see distribution for a one-time situation on an ag land. Is that already okay?
Well, I think an event,
Like a farmer's market on ag.
our event situation we're using our regular events regulations, and the way we did it with the coastal zone is that, again, it's existing event regulations. So events of less than 1,000 people need an admin permit. Events of more than 1,000 need a use permit. And the only language we would be creating is just adding that setback to events so that the parcel in which events are occurring on can't be like next to a school or that.
Are you talking about just self-distribution or just any distribution?
I was hoping to expand like whole distribution to ag.
If you're in an opt-out zone for cannabis
Then
cultivation.
I would,
Cannabis cultivation.
I have to check the regulations on that to see what the language is.
I think it's only cultivation, Chris.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I believe so, but I would need to verify.
Yeah,
technically-
you can't do it on cultivation if it's trying, unless you otherwise have a legitimate parcel. And I guess theoretically somebody could have, let's say, an RR10, no, not even an RR10, but some other zoning that would qualify on its own, not as ancillary, but generally no.
I don't understand what she said. Generally know what?
I don't think that they would allow cannabis businesses in general. Is that correct, what you're saying, Hannah?
Hannah?
What I meant was, I thought that the question was, would it be allowed in an opt-out zone?
That was the
Was
question.
that
Yeah,
the
so
question?
say there was an
Okay.
opt-out zone up in Regina Heights that was ag,
Right,
would they allow a distribution facility
right.
by itself without cultivation? And for me, I don't know. I've kind of been out of cultivation for a while.
answer will be no.
I think that since
Anybody else in this room? Sorry.
I don't
Go ahead,
believe
Hannah.
I don't believe that ag in and of itself, until the ordinance is amended, would qualify for full distribution without it being ancillary to a cultivation permit. So I think it would be fine. And I think that if this proposal is to expand to allow full distribution on ag, it could simply be added, and I think it's a smart recommendation, to say except for in a combining zone that does not allow cultivation. And I think that would be a simple way to make sure.
I do think that's where the board would lead us as well, is to, yes, it's allowed in ag unless it's in this cannabis prohibition district.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's something we can bring to the board. So Hannah, so what we're doing is, unfortunately, I didn't email this list, so I have kind of items for direction to the board that we can hopefully get on the next possible meeting. So we're just going through general, microbusiness, manufacturing, processing, and retail, and right now we're talking about distribution. So for distribution, the item I had typed up is tiered system based on amount of cannabis distributed or the fleet size. Right. And then Julia just brought up having distribution in C1 as well as, and then I brought up ag. So is there anything on distribution you'd like to see added as well to this item? Take that as a no.
Do you need us to take a picture of the agenda and text it to you? Did we lose Hannah?
Are you still there?
She's not there.
She's on. She just probably muted herself.
Oh.
Okay. Well, we'll come back to that. So I just want to make sure retail. Was there anything that anyone in particular was interested in retail? I didn't have anything in my notes.
Wait. I'm sorry, Andy. I was on mute. I just wanted to say something about the distribution, and I have a copy of the agenda that Amanda emailed a number of days ago, but I don't have anything else.
Yeah. So does anyone have her number that they
Do
can
you
just...
want us to text you a picture?
That would
Of the
be so,
agenda?
Bill, thank you. My cell phone number is 415-310-5225, and thank you so much.
Okay, Julia's going to text you a picture of what I typed up.
Cool. And then, so with respect to distribution as a standalone, I think that not only C1 and C2 are imperative, and essentially the idea is that currently, while we really appreciate the accessory use thing, we really need to get additional distribution locations.
Yeah.
And microbusiness too. I mean, the same thing, falls for microbusiness with non.
We're going to go through each business type, so let's bring that up when we get to it.
Okay, so we're going to, we started out with distribution?
Yeah.
I raised my hand.
Okay, I have things about this.
Yeah, no, so
And I spoke first.
let's kind of work backwards, because I think
Add one more to the agenda that I'm not seeing, and that's, of course, events.
it's up in general. Oh, wait, did I not include that?
No, amateur is.
Yeah,
Event language.
number 3.
Thank you for submitting that.
Okay.
Missed that word. Thank you.
So let's work up, just because obviously micro-business manufacturing tend to be the bigger conversation.
Sure.
So for retail, so we do currently permit cultivators to get a retail license for non-storefront, which would cover delivery and events. So if you want to go to an event, that's your retail license.
Through microbusiness.
No, if you're a cultivator, we allow non-storefront retail licenses to cultivators.
Really?
So you can do delivery with that, and you can do your events with that.
Okay.
And that's existing right now.
What are the variables that someone up in the hills might say? Are there zoning issues attached to that?
Typically not zoning, I would say a lot of, as we've seen a lot of these discussions, building is the big hurdle.
So having a permitted building.
Yes. Unfortunately, Mike couldn't make it today, so I'm not quite sure what those qualifications are for a retail building.
Non-storefront or for real?
Non-storefront. We wouldn't allow
There wasn't. There was like, is this like if it's the same as the state, or is it going to be different?
In what sense?
The requirements for the retail non-storefront qualification of a space building for the state is just as long as you have security and you have cameras on each door and it's permitted structure?
I believe it was...
No, he's talking about building permit requirements, like in other words, do you need an F1 occupancy, or can you use...
And I do think...
Mike said no.
And I think that's right. I think it was an S type, which is storage.
Yeah,
which is
spinning, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you could also say, it could be also an ag...
No, for building permits.
Oh, they got their own.
Yeah.
Also, he said ag exempt, I think, too.
So we would have to...
120 square foot without plumbing or electricity.
So the variable is
got that.
Yeah.
If you don't need F1 or anything.
And no employees.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I think retail...
Yeah, because we just found out that we could do it.
Yeah, they don't know.
Sorry?
Well, I just got approval, from Mike, 2 weeks ago.
Back and forth.
I think some of the detail hadn't been ironed out.
Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like retail, then we're good. And then processing...
Retail, I would like to talk about a conversation going on in Willett, is how far a setback really has to be. And the same with manufacturing, which would open up more facilities. In Willett, manufacturing is 200 feet with the caveat of certain filter systems. And I think the county really needs to look at that to open up more locations.
So it sounds more, instead of just retail, more under general review setback.
That, just this blank 1,000 feet or even the 600 feet, because it's still up to the locals to be able to set their
Correct.
And so Willett really has made a wise decision, and it's not there would be no property. Do 200 because they went down to the city and they visited facilities that were zero smell, and you walk in and you're in a huge gathering.
Right. I will add that we do allow currently setback reductions, but we can add to the list kind of review setback
And maybe in the big picture, y'all have someone that could give an analysis of how many properties that would open up for different licenses.
We can
So
try.
Oh, I understand, just put it out,
Just
that
to
would be great.
clarify, what you're saying is that through a variance application,
Admin permit.
admin permit, thank you. So through an admin permit application, you can get a reduction in setback.
And you
Right
can
now.
even get it down to 0, potentially.
Well, that's fine, I just think that that extra step maybe could be taken out.
Right, so then we can add setback. I'll figure out how to put it on the
Yeah, that was
bullet.
what I wanted to report on that.
We need
Setback
first and-
language.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and address setback language.
Okay. So then we'll add that in general, because it seems like you want that for more than just retail.
It could apply to more than just, manufacturing is really, and distribution probably is where I could see it really being a bit better.
I agree, and
Okay.
I have real discussions about distribution in regards to what's being stored and how it, the county looks at cannabis differently out of the state than anything else. But in some areas, when it's convenient, they look at it the same way. So if you're going to look at it different than everything else, do that across the board, and that would include some of this zoning and such, because storage of cannabis is not like storage of wine or some other product.
Right.
It's got shelf life,
Okay.
and that's different.
Right. Okay. So then moving upwards, let's talk about processing. Again, in my notes, I really had very little on processing, just tiered system based on amount of cannabis processed. I think, and I will say,
Opening up zoning for it.
I think that's more of a general.
Okay.
Because I do have, I did not put it on
No,
there.
that's why I put it down in distribution.
Okay. And so in general, I apologize, I meant to have, expand zoning allowances.
Okay.
Sorry, it's been a long day. I'm stumbling over my words.
All right, you're fine. That's all that matters. Expand zoning
Allowances, I would
allowances.
Yes. And I still haven't been able to find the data on how many we actually have.
So,
County.
so it's difficult for me to say because I permit I do the zoning and everything, and so I can permit, say, 17 businesses, and then what actually gets issued by the tax collector could be different from that 17. Like, they could 15 people could come get their licenses in the time that I process had to fold. So the number I give you is what I have approved. It's not necessarily
The actual license amount.
exactly. So it's something that we would need to reach out to the tax collector for that number.
Sure, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, I just didn't really, I have been involved in cultivation so long as shipping, but food. I already figured that out through communicating with Bandy. I didn't really understand what he was ever saying.
Right. Well, so for example, I've approved 17 retailers, but I believe currently we only have 15 operating because 2 have folded or just not picked up their permit or something. I don't know. But I know I've approved about 17 retailers, and that's not what's operating currently.
Right.
So I will say with the
Request for
tiered.
processing.
Sorry. Yes.
I have a request for processing, and I know that this is a small issue, but there seems to be a category of people who are potentially having to move or even eventually withdraw, and they're going to be ending their cultivation. Let's say if they're outdoor growers, they won't be actually growing after September, October, but then they'll have to be holding their product. And if they're moving and there is, let's just think forward, and there's going to be transferability, we may want to have an interim processing license where they don't have to maintain their full cultivation license to the end of the harvest, but just a processing. In other words, that they're not like continuing to actually cultivate. And I want to raise the idea of a kind of a self-processing license for those who are finished at one location and before they have been approved, let's say, for a state license for a new location or whatever. And I know it's
Right.
a hybrid, but it is an issue that's come up.
Has the state not discussed this at all, just considering, since I've kind of been out of cultivation?
Right, the state doesn't have any processing tied to, like, you don't need, just like with us, we don't need a state license for processing if you're processing your own product grown on the premises, right? You only need a processing license. But
I'm just curious if the state adopted something where the situation arises where you have a cultivator who might not cultivate the next year but still has material that they need to process. That hasn't come up with the state at all?
No, because the state doesn't do the minimum taxes the way that we do them. You know, they just do a gross tax. So that's really where it affects people, is that they need to, you know, stop doing the cultivation. They're not going to be replanting. They're not going to be doing another cycle. They're not going to be doing anything. But just because they haven't sold their product yet, there's no kind of lawful way for them to finish being done with that former crop that they've already been, you know, having the minimum on and stuff like that.
Right. Well, let me talk to county council, because if our permit, despite the fact that they are not renewing it for a year, that I want to check with Matt to make sure that they're still not covered. And if they are not, then I'll definitely have this on the list to bring to the board.
And
Thank you.
I would try to capture every unique situation like that, because it's not just with cultivation, it's with everything. And so for me, it sounds more like some kind of special temporary license due to transition of some sort.
So like a transitional license.
Yeah. Meaning business transitional license.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
If they put it into distribution, then that would solve, like, that takes care of that.
Yeah.
In what way?
If they're cultivating and they stop and they have products sitting around, if they put it into distribution anywhere, or even with themselves, if they had distribution, then it would solve that problem, wouldn't it?
Well, then
Yes,
there's
it would.
distribution
That means
license
that they have,
tied with the cultivation.
Yeah, but in other words, she's talking about an outside distributor if they transfer their product. Yes, if they're lucky enough to do that, but then many distributors are charging for storage. So, you know, again, it's just.
It would be. It sounds to me like a temporary transitional license, and it's not just
For grace period or something?
It's for every
6 months grace period, 3 months.
something.
Like insurance, so good for 30 days and you get paid.
Right.
Okay, well, yeah, so let me talk to county council about this, and then if it's not something that seems feasible just as is, then we'll add this to the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, and then I just want to mention with these tiered systems, I kind of think those are going to be more of a tax collector issue, because I'm not monitoring how much cannabis is being processed or the fleet. Well, I'm doing fleet size, but like anything involving your revenues, that's all tax collector. So I will say that these tiered items might be more under the tax collector's chapter for forewarning.
So, Vandy, I think what was meant by that wasn't so much the different fee charged, although that's one issue. It was more a matter of processing your own product that is grown on, let's say, different permits that you hold in the county under separate permits, but it's still only you, versus taking in outside product from somebody else. So that's one situation. and that it really, Flocana should pay one fee, but if I own 2 properties with 2 permits and I need to get a processing license in order to process both of my permit locations at one location, then I shouldn't be paying what Flocana pays. Likewise, if there are community processing centers that deal with like a neighborhood to help cut down on the amount of infrastructure that's F1 occupancy or whatever, but it's limited to, let's say, 10 farms are being processed or a certain amount of product is being processed, that's, like I said, different than the Flocana model. And I think that's what we meant about tiered, not necessarily the, you know,
I think we meant
price.
both.
Yeah.
Well, so
I
then
definitely.
for you, what would the threshold be then? I mean, what is being measured to determine these different fees?
Maybe
I think.
Well, we only have one.
No, it's the amount of profit.
I mean, all I can think of is revenues, because, you know, the county's not sitting there watching how many clients you have that you're processing, and we're not monitoring. The only thing we're really able to monitor that's measurable would be the revenues.
Well, I guess there's 2 things that we could do. One is we can have a separate rate for one entity that has no more than 2 permits that is trying to process for both permits at one site. That's a very distinct category, and they should be charged a lot less.
The issue with that is what's going to prevent them from processing other people's? The county has no mechanism to monitor that.
And there can be large people that have, large corporations that have 2 licenses. So I think it's the cannabis process. It's the amount.
Or the gross revenue, like Sandy was saying.
That's track and trace verified.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. It's by the time.
Yeah.
Because even on income, you could be doing a different grade and
Okay.
pounds,
Right.
etc. And there probably should be a breakdown of what styles of processing, whether it's finished bud or just processing for biomass.
Again, it's difficult for the county to monitor that.
I think that revenue.
You wouldn't really be processing big leaching and stuff, probably consider processing.
Well, it's already, you're doing that on the plant typically.
So I have the track and trace, and we can kind of, I mean, I guess these can be discussions with the board, and they can kind of also give their input as to what threshold and what mechanism we're using to measure.
We could give them guidelines based on the industry recommendations, and that really, in my opinion, again, comes to revenue generation. Anybody can have any amount of licenses at the state level, and here in Mendo, anybody can have 2 licenses for cultivation and as many licenses on anything else. And you could be, a venture capitalist company and buy a bunch of them, or you can be a small mom and pop that to go out of business and can't feed or clothe their family, and you can't afford that same price that they can. So from my perspective, it's about volume.
Okay.
Well, I'd say, Julia, do you agree with revenue instead of volume? In other words, I think that Vandy has a good point that it's really hard for the county to track physical volume, but it's pretty easy for them to track revenue because of the gross receipts tax.
Well, I'll put both on the list, and this is something we can discuss with the board.
And let me tell you why. Because, again, there's different grades, there's different contracts, people grow different variety. I mean, there's just a lot of variables in there that need to be taken out because this whole process needs to be simplified to work. So from my perspective, it's about quantity, and that's track and trace.
So we'll put both on the list.
Yeah.
Okay, so then so for processing, we have the tiered systems under that as track and trace and or revenues, as well as interim processing license, although I think that might go up to general for just general transitional licenses.
Yeah.
So then let's move on to, sorry.
So Kim brought up about can we set up a processing facility that can have a base of shared use, and what would that look like?
So I'm just confused by that because if you are a processor with a license, you can...
But similar to like the type of kitchen? So, somebody with a type S kitchen, then they can have, as long as the person has, a facility, people can come in and use the kitchen who have a
That's
license.
not allowed at the state.
Yeah, so the
The state doesn't have a type S kitchen?
no, that's only the type S is only for manufacturing.
Okay, so that's what I'm thinking,
Yeah.
but,
I will say a person in Mendocino County who has a processing license, I mean, it's not the same as shared in the sense that you
Yeah, they
share
can.
space, but they can do whoever they want to process.
so you really can't, like, say if a collective wanted to get a permit for
Yeah.
processing, and they were competent,
Yeah,
And
that would be the closest I guess you could get, but
Okay.
not in the same way that there's a S-type license for manufacturing, there isn't one for processing or distribution.
Okay.
Okay, so then let's move on to manufacturing. I do have a lot of discussion in my notes, but I feel like these were the three things that constantly stood out that seemed to be direction that the working group would like to see the board take. So that would be one, incorporate the shared use facilities, which if any of you had seen in the coastal regulations, we have that, and so we got direction to kind of fix the coastal one, so I'm sure we'll take that direction inland as well. Item 2 is include ethanol into the non-volatile definition. We have been practicing that, but this would just be formalizing that. And last would be home manufacturing as a standalone license where it's not attached to home off and cottage industry. It would just be, I think it would still have to be tied to cultivation. I find it
So it would be like
hard for
microbusiness.
planning and building to support a micro business without that cultivation occurring on the site as well. So I do think there is room to.
Why is that?
Yeah, why is that?
We don't allow, the intensity of a micro business, well, ironically it's called a micro business. We really limit a lot of types of activity in kind of the more rural places like rangeland, forest land, all that. Exactly. So if we don't allow certain uses, I don't know, like with custom manufacturing, you can do that with a use permit as a cottage industry. However, and that's the thing, the cottage industry and the home office really are what allows certain types of businesses that aren't traditionally in resource land, and that's why there's the house requirement, that's why there's an employee limit, that's why there's a size limit to what you're doing, because the commercial activities we are allowing in resource land are significantly limited.
Yeah.
So to allow micro business without those limits, from my perspective, it would be very difficult for us to support that.
But
Not to say that we can't provide that
micro
direction.
business. This is a standalone.
Well, manufacturing is a standalone.
Well, I meant in the sense of home office.
I've got it.
Of
Sorry
cottage
about
industry,
that.
yeah. So sorry, I did pull in micro business, but with either micro business or home manufacturing, not having them tied to the home lock and cottage industry is doable, but allowing them to kind of be the same level as you would find in an industrial area, I do not think that we could support that.
I haven't seen anyone interested in that either. So, it's the most interested farmers that they're working with. Well,
Residential areas.
residential, but for cultivators, I don't think that they care.
Can I ask what about, is it really the home requirement
For
between?
cultivators, a lot of times it is because
Okay.
they're on the garden
So it's
site. Yeah.
not necessarily all the like the home off only allowing 640 and the
No.
the home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes, not. I'd say the people that I'm talking to, I'd say it's about 60-40. 60% don't care because they live there. 40% want to get a micro business, but they
Can't because of the resident.
they don't live there. Yeah.
So in reality, it's really just removing the home requirement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That makes a
Then
lot.
if you do that, if you remove the home requirement from your perspective with a micro business permit, they're going to have some.
They're going to have a structure.
They're going to have, and then
Skill building up.
but then security.
That can all happen.
Yeah, it could. It just
The residents.
yeah. Okay.
It doesn't mean it has to be structureless, it just doesn't have to have the home requirement.
Right. Does someone, because the state wanted to know, I don't know if they require it, but they wanted to know if someone was going to be on site when anything is in storage. Yeah. So then, if someone has to be on site, then isn't that a resident? Don't they have to be there?
Camp.
But camping's not allowed.
We have camping limits in the county.
Yeah, you can't do that. So it's sort of like
Deer stand.
24/7 deer stand.
We don't allow living in trailers for more than a certain period.
Yeah, Kim, I think you have a valid point, but there are workarounds there.
Yeah.
There's neighbors, there's, camping for 2 weeks, isn't it?
I would have to check again. I think it's no more than like 8 weeks in the year with no, but there is like a consecutive thing where it's like no more than 2 weeks out of those 8 weeks.
That we might be handy for you, Vandy, to like put together some sort of packet for someone who wants to do it and just simplify your question zone. You know, people coming in, just here's a workaround. Like Julie's got some great ideas for workarounds, like 2 weeks of camping, all these ways. If you don't live there, here's some things you might be able to do that are complicated sometimes, but maybe you could make it work. No, but maybe we could volunteer to help him and do, because we're kind of doing that anyway. People coming to you for questions, people coming to me for questions, save you somehow.
For how I said, so you want the county to give you the loopholes?
Oh no, not loopholes, but just like to save you from getting like everyone coming in all the time, which they're doing, and saying
that's the job.
I know, but it's so I've been there, like you have, and like people have the same questions over and over and over. I have just dance off.
I've had brilliant ideas, trying to follow them.
Yeah,
I think that it's a wonderful idea to put together a list, but I don't think it's realistic to ask the county to distribute it. I think that through all of our networks and social media, those lists and helpful hints can be distributed if you want.
I mean, that would be more appropriate.
I think actually what would be great is if y'all would do a press release as these things evolve within the cannabis, county process, which y'all don't do. It's like, we did it, there's like a brick wall unless one of us pick it up and carry it into our community.
So you mean when we do make the changes to the regulations and a press release that this is what's been adopted recently?
That would be
so helpful. I can ask.
And then we can follow it up on social media as a volunteer citizen.
Advice column.
And since
Karen's advice column. Karen's advice column.
People can follow the law.
Right.
That's the primary law to make that happen.
Okay. So then, did we want to go through these manufacturing items one by one? I mean, we all seem to be in agreement with them.
Yeah.
It'll be included, but the research is there.
Yeah, that's in general.
And we were saying tied to cultivation or not tied to cultivation? The number.
So standalone, it would be tied to cultivation. I mean, we can consider it. I just find it difficult to support that without the cultivation.
No, I think you're right. You're just writing it. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to micro business. So we have item 1, which is create standalone, similar to home manufacturing, where it's not tied to cottage. Well, I guess again, it's the home requirement that's really the issue.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just.
But everything else would have to be there to propose it.
Right. Then we have 2, potential tiered system based on revenue size of operation. This kind of goes back to our conversations with the other tiered systems. And then micro business tied to cultivation permit. So I guess it's kind of 3 is the same as 1 because I was interpreting them differently. So is there any other discussion on micro business for items to bring to the board?
Other than opening up the zoning for it.
The setbacks might address.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, that given that the expand zoning for processing and microbusiness and everything is in general, as long as we don't forget it when we're talking specifically about microbusiness. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
for the microbusiness, tying it to the language for tourism, Canada tourism, I had a lot of questions about that. So I don't know how to simplify
I
that.
mean, I do have item 4 under general as incorporate
Yeah.
canna-tourism. We haven't really discussed it. I don't know
Is there language?
what to do. It really depends on the county, I've noticed. Like,
Okay.
Humboldt, I haven't seen anything in Humboldt that really, I don't know if they're doing anything in Humboldt, like allowing bed and breakfast or anything.
Yeah, they are.
If they are, I haven't really
Yeah.
seen regs that dictate it, so they might just be using
There's a
existing.
lot of interest here, though. That's a lot of my questions. Like, people they just live here and if they can't cultivate anymore, they have a B&B.
Right, and I would like to incorporate, because my intent is that hopefully we bring this to them, and the next time we revise this is not for a long time.
We all agree that we can't give in till it's right, so I appreciate you got the same focus.
Right.
And the state, as far as the state's concerned, they don't really have something for that yet. For cannabis tourism.
I believe they're working on stuff.
Yeah, they are working on stuff, and the other thing that I would mention is that for many, for at least a couple of years now, maybe even 3 years, we've been trying to involve environmental health in terms of addressing the concerns that they initially expressed with respect to the bed and breakfast part. And, it becomes a consumption thing. But I think that the argument is that if you have a consumption event, it's no different. So if we are comfortable with regulating events like we regulate other things with some additional things with regards to distances to sensitive receptors and whatnot, then why shouldn't we be comfortable with bed and breakfast being regulated just like any inn and not worry about the consumption part, because we don't worry about the consumption part when it comes to events or consumption lounges like at retailers and stuff like that. So that's my thought on that, because it will always come up where environmental health will say, oh, but we're not sure and we don't know how to do that and we're really leery because people are going to consume. Well, we've asked them for 3 years to be involved and to come up with some protocols, and they have not and they will not. So my feeling is at this point, since the county does seem to be comfortable with consumption in certain environments, as long as that environment itself is the basis of regulation, then the same can be applied to bed and breakfast with respect to twins.
Can I just ask real quick? So my idea of canna-tourism has been very limited. So I know bed and breakfast, and I know of farm tours.
Farm tours.
Is there other ideas of canna-tourism?
Yeah.
Well, then aside from events is their own thing.
I've already talked to, I think it was Mike, about spa using products, even if they're not selling or distributing them.
We already allow that.
What?
We already allow that. The Madrones on...
Yeah.
128.
Yeah.
They have a retail license.
So they do have
They came to us initially to use cannabis topical. We don't. That's not a license type to use product.
Right. So
to sell.
It's not even consumption.
No. We allowed that.
Yeah.
Food events. Cannabis-infused food events.
Yeah, those are on private property or in restaurants.
Would that not fall? Well, yeah, like with restaurants or an event.
An event where you sell tickets and they come.
That's a
I'm just curious, would that not fall under the event? Like if someone applied for an event with the state?
It could, but we need to, you're asking a question, I'm filling in the last blank I'm aware of.
Okay.
I don't think it'd be any different than using massage products, if you're selling an event, you're not selling the product on site, you're hosting an experience. Same with using a massage roll,
There might be some people that do
that modality.
This is Stuart. I'd like to make a comment when there's a chance.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I just wanted to point out that also we're interested in doing educational workshops with cooking or medicinal workshops, whether it be consumption or training on how to process things with foods or different types of varieties and hands-on experiences. which would be similar to bed and breakfast. It could also have on-site consumption, but it would also be working with the materials in an educational manner.
Right. So these are like...
Oh, good point. Okay, question.
Also, please put me on the list that I'm attending because I came in late on the call.
Right.
He wants to be...
Okay. Okay, so I don't know if this is countertourism or getting into that, because no one else, we're going to be ahead of a lot of people, even though we're not very far along. Edibles, like if you're cooking, like in Julia's idea, if you're making dinner and you're putting cannabis in it, is that going to be a requirement for the state testing as far as dosages, et cetera? Does it have to be packaged and labeled?
Well, they have to, my guess is they buy it retail and then cook it. And then so it's already gone through that process.
But if you're making like a sauce, like a soup or something,
People won't come back to your party.
Right, but I'm just saying, by the time the state has every 10 milligrams packaged and sealed, right, for retail. But if you don't have a retail license and you're doing cannabis tourism and you're on someone's private property and it's basically consumption at that point, can you take a pre-tested product, put it in soup, and then serve it up without controlling dosage? So that's been a question of mine forever. It's like, if you do that, then people can get really hammered or not.
Just a reminder that the state is working on tourism things.
So that'll come up with that.
So
just do whatever.
the state might not have anything on that.
Okay, here's a really good one to Kayla, because she does some.
I do think we should look at it.
Kayla says live silent auction and fundraisers.
If you get a donation, like a nonprofit gets a donation for their fundraiser, you already have to have temporary licenses to auction off, like wine, for instance. If someone wanted to donate products to a nonprofit and they want to auction it off, is there like... Yeah,
again, I agree with Bandy that this would be maybe covered under events, and that maybe what we could do is we could have specific language in our ordinance that enunciates some of the event types that are covered under events. So that way people aren't blocked from doing it, but it sounds like an event type thing could cover it.
Right. So events and cannabis tourism is really going to overlap.
Trying to do a small scale cannabis space right now. You cannot afford to do what I'm doing on what they're talking about, a small dinner, if you push them into the state process.
Right.
It needs to be treated with a different hand.
But if the state ends up regulating it...
Well, then we can talk about it, but they're not right now.
Right.
So I'd rather us not bring what's on the state regulations. I'm super duper proud of what you propose, and I don't think we need to mess with it. You know?
Sounds good.
I just think that, you could not afford to do a dinner party for the current event process.
Right.
You could not afford to do a small gathering. It's got to be part of your hospitality and, and make sure you don't have any complaints, because that's what will make it change.
So leave it unregulated. Okay.
I'll just start putting questions on me first, Leave my wonderful, wonderful event language alone.
All right, well, so we've kind of bled into general, so I'm guessing we'll cross out 3 on microbusiness, since that's kind of covered by 1, and then move on from there to general. So for general, I have removed church from sensitive receptors definition because John had stated that was direction already. We only found direction for cultivation and discussion for facilities. There was no actual direction for that, so we kind of need them to solidify that for us. And then we had talked a lot about consistency between all the cannabis chapters,
yes.
Definitions, terminology, everything. 3 is incorporate event language into 20.243. We had just discussed that. Item 4 is incorporate tourism language.
Is there drafted language?
That was my question.
No. Don't we need
to draft some language?
Not necessarily.
Wait for the state?
Well, that's kind of what I was asking about, what you thought of as tourism, because if the board can give PBS kind of an idea of what types of cannatourism they want to see adopted or brought to them, it might help kind of planning and building.
Fantasies, like awesome cannatourism idea fantasies? Is that what you're talking about? Like what?
I mean, if they're fantasies, then that's going to be hard.
Now they are because we don't have any permission to do it.
Naked drivers in.
But you know,
on private property you could.
For example, with bed and breakfast, maybe it's a retail license that's accessory to, like, someone who has a business license of an Airbnb or vacation home rental or a hotel. Yeah. You know, we kind of
that's
it's kind of the same thing that happened with the overlay districts where they didn't really give us language to work with. We had to just create it. I mean, we hired us to create it, but we created it.
Just attach it to any kind of business license?
Well, I think what would happen is we'd ask the board through the working group and direct PBS to create and work on draft cannatourism language based on, such as bed and breakfast, farm tours, things like that.
We call it bed and breakfast. Spas, bed.
Oh, sorry.
Bed and breakfast, spas, what else?
Spa.
Workshops, Stuart said workshops, education, which is sort of like farm tours. Camping? Like,
I was let me put hospitality.
Yeah, hospitality. Yeah. Okay, what else? Fantasies of all cannatourism.
Or fantasy.
Okay, or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm going to fantastic ideas then.
Fantasy like how things die.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Hannah was speaking.
Sorry, is there someone on the phone?
I just want to argue again that particularly for bed and breakfast, my argument is that if they have on innkeeper's licenses, hotel and transient tax license and whatever, then they, the county doesn't need to regulate the consumption part.
Well, so the issue with that is that because when you pay for, say, if you're doing a bed and breakfast, you're paying for a room that incorporates getting cannabis. That's kind of in a way retailing it to. And that's coming from county council, because I had to bring this up at the very beginning when we brought the regulations, and that was county council concern.
Almost creating an accessory retail license to other types of licenses.
Correct. That's just one idea too. Like that's coming from me.
That's a good idea.
Where it's an accessory retail cannabis license to a transit habitation business license or use.
Awesome. That would be fantastic.
And again, these are just
Vandy, I think that's a really great idea, and I also think that it should be tiered based on income.
Hey, Stuart, are you on mute?
We can't hear Hannah because someone's breathing really hard.
So did you hear that last part? As I suggested,
I got that.
It's a great idea, but it should be tiered.
Nobody can hear.
Tiered. Yeah. Because really, the only formula we have right now is for the big cannabis stuff.
Right.
And I'm doing it anyway, just, because.
Right.
It's not sustainable.
So a tiered
Okay.
use permit?
It really depends on
Based on
zoning and access and
existing business of some kind.
Okay, so then moving on, item 5. I just saw this repeated a lot in my notes, and I'm not really sure if it's in general or if it was specific, but just kind of downgrading admin permits or use permits into admin permits for certain businesses. I don't know if anyone remembered if that was a specific thing or just generally you wanted more admin permits as opposed to use permits. Cost, okay. So it could still be a use permit if it costs less.
Well, a use permit, you've got to go through CEQA.
Admin can still go through CEQA as well. It's just that generally they do not.
Yeah, that's my point. Use permits do require you to go through CEQA. Admin do not require you to go through CEQA. And that's where the cost lies, bioenforcement, cultural reports, the whole bit.
Admins can go through CEQA.
Yeah,
it's
but
just
that's
generally
not
they do
common.
not. Yeah, but I mean, like, for example, a majority of the facilities use permits that have come to me have not gone through CEQA. They've all been exempt.
But that you were asking.
Oh, sorry. Well, yeah.
That's why. Cost.
Well,
There's one more reason, and that's time.
Time, yeah, Anna's right.
Admin's faster.
Yes, right. Way faster.
And then,
money and time.
So then, because the zoning administrator who signs off on admin permits has the right to push them to a public hearing. So if that's not an issue with people, that your admin permit might go to a public hearing, we can definitely consider that.
Yeah, if it's supposed to go to a public hearing, it should.
It does. It doesn't generally unless the zoning administrator feels it should.
Right.
Okay. So.
And that's not common, and so therefore it costs cheaper generally.
Yes.
And takes less time.
Okay. And then the two little notes that I added onto mine were expand zoning allowance. So I have, for example, distribution, C1, ag, microbusiness, everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Anywhere is possible.
That one might be a little difficult to get everywhere, but I'm sure we can increase the zonings on that one.
And the argument about distribution, again, is you're storing something that's got a shelf life. It's no worse than, it's the easy thing to store.
Right.
And then,
so setback language, I'm going to, I guess, tie with item 1, which is the sensor receptor. So, but setback language in the sense of reducing our 600-foot setback to less. Although, again, like I said, we do allow setback reductions. But
through a variance.
Yeah.
But
when the ad hoc met in Willett, it was brought up and they seemed interested.
Okay, yeah, no, we can definitely bring it up.
And they were open to the 200 people.
Okay.
So, and then if we wanted to get it down to 0, then you can open that.
I will just say that if we're going to talk about consistency, though, they left cultivation at 600.
Well, that's a different type of consideration because of the smell issue. And so I can understand why they're probably hesitant for that.
Okay.
But for the other non-cultivation license type, it should be in the discussion.
Okay.
Karen's right.
Well, now you can make all the decisions.
Good luck with
I'm
that
turning
one.
60 next month when we're full.
Good. You should be. You deserve it.
Okay.
I mean, smell is one thing, because you can also address smell if you're doing manufacturing at 0, there's like Karen was talking about.
I live next to compassionate heart. I don't smell anything.
Yeah, exactly. My point, though, is here with the setback reduction.
Yeah.
The real idea behind it is, again, to expand potential properties.
Okay.
Which is really the limiting issue here for Mendocino County. There's just not enough local non-cultivation businesses to deal with the cultivation businesses.
I see on the shared facilities, it's just only manufacturing level 1, non-volatile.
Shared facilities only applies to non-volatile.
And that's the same with the state?
Correct.
Like that.
Just like same with microbusiness.
Because of limited.
And is this number 5, that who can use the facility, is that from the state or?
Number 5 on.
Oh, it's
Are you moving us along the agenda?
I'm looking through the coastal rec.
Thank you.
There's good things in it that could be brought over into we're now calling it the Highlands instead of inland.
Okay. Can I see what item you're talking about, please? The item.
At the top, number D, or number D, that doesn't work.
So what about item D?
Well, I can.
Quickly.
I forgot already.
Yes.
But only 5 businesses.
Oh, so I will say that was just coming from me, just to start the regulation. I obviously have not had conversations with what a shared facility is, so my interpretation at the time was a single unit that's being shared. So if there's 5 business days a week, it's a person per business day. That was the idea, but again, we brought it.
I think people would produce on a different schedule.
Okay.
I don't know that it would be a weekly production schedule.
Okay.
Because the day oils and such as that, or whatever,
Right.
kind of a little bit longer life. They'd probably producing for a day or 2 for a 6-week run or
Okay.
whatever.
So you're thinking more that it's going to be people come in for 6 weeks and then leave and someone else comes.
We just don't want to limit it. We don't.
Right.
Because we have, and we're talking small producers. We're not
Right.
talking large producers.
Right.
So I would hate to see this low of a.
Okay. No, again, that was just, I was looking for direction. I just put that in there thinking from my logic that it would be 1 person a day, a week.
Well, no, and I can see where you get to that, but I think
But yeah,
that when we
no.
really did some analysis, it would be more.
I believe the board provided direction to change that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was watching the board thing in India, and I was so
Oh, you poor baby you.
Why?
I will, don't do that. Watch it when you get back.
I was too stressed.
You're on vacation? You're listening to that?
I was at a wedding, so.
You were too stressed.
And
I get it.
Delhi is not the most fun city.
Yeah, probably not.
It's packed
Very crowded and polluted and not.
and dirty.
Yeah.
To say I was
Hey,
very happy to be driving back to Ukiah when I was coming back. Oh my God, there's only 15,000 people here. Yes, Hannah?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that you've done a really, really superb job of capturing everything that we wanted to move on and coming up with ideas. And I really, really, really appreciate your efforts, and thank you for handling this meeting so well, too.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good time to ask him to borrow some money, Hannah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's refreshing. You and Julia are refreshing.
Well, thank you.
There's the toxicity everybody else seems to be feeling.
You should be promoted to the highest level in the county.
At least the cannabis program.
Yeah.
Maybe, we'll see. All right.
If you get that stress standing, maybe not.
I was going to say,
Right?
No, I wouldn't say I was stressed. I was so, because I actually did a lot of, I don't want to say writing of those ordinances, but I was so involved that I was really curious to see what happened with it.
Of course, you were
So
vested.
I was just very invested in what happened at that meeting. It was very disappointing too, because obviously I couldn't be there to speak to certain things that seemed to fray the meeting. Like that 5 people, it's like, oh my God, it was just a recommendation, I'm sorry. Okay, so I think we have our agenda to bring to the board.
and so looking at I just wrote down all the dates of the next board meetings, and there's a whole lot of them. And
A lot of them are budget meetings, I believe.
yeah, they got 2 back-to-back, like the 6th and the 4th of June, anyway. So
We're doing for tax purposes, we're doing sorry, it must be close to 5. When you apply because you think something wasn't right, what do you call that?
Is that 2?
Appeal process.
Appeal.
Putting an appeal process in place for the taxes.
Yes, they are.
The cultivation?
Yeah, and
Oh,
we
that's
have to
the
meet
28th to get on the 11th.
Yeah, and I would as quickly as possible.
Okay.
That's supposed to be on the next bill they send out.
Yeah.
Okay.
To introduce that
Yeah.
process.
So that's why. And it's a good thing, everyone.
Yeah.
We had a very small window of about 15 days or 14 days, but everybody that needs to,
Right.
ask.
Once they send that out, you have 15 days
Yeah.
to ask for an appeal,
Yeah,
is my understanding.
yeah. And everybody you should start telling them about it.
Oh, we will.
Get the application in here and feel free.
Yeah, it'll be on Mendocino
And
Action
you
right
have to
away.
go in front of the board of supervisors, I think. I think it's individual, that's what.
Well, Gary's saying that you should show up at the meeting and tell the board of supervisors why.
Yeah, right.
I don't know about that. I'm sending
And
my
when
client.
Sarah comes back.
We'll wait till it comes out, but that's what she told me, I thought, but I'm.
I'm sending my clients that need it to the board meeting tomorrow.
Yes, yes.
So, Vandy, can I ask off the record question on, off the record?
Well, it's
Okay, but off the record, sort of.
just us.
On
Just us not recording.
for
Yeah.
Canada Tourism,
On that camera.
Yeah,
we used to have the working group for Canada Tourism, which is,
probably disappeared.
yeah, didn't have, we had one meeting. But,
And then they gave 50 grand to someone, and I never saw them result.
was it West Company? Oh, yeah.
It wasn't
So-
directly West Company, but yeah.
Because this is my, session, as everyone knows by now, but for Canada Tourism, we don't want to ask too many questions, and that's good, I can do that, but we do want to get busy and do something official, because Napa Valley already has their slogan, home of the best cannabis in the world.
Right.
I'm not kidding. So, yeah, and you can't even cultivate there, but they have stores where you can spend your money and get taxes. So my question is, all these possibilities for Canada Tourism is amazing, and that could bring in a ton of money.
Yes, which is why I wanted to incorporate it.
Yeah, so how can we continue on focusing specifically on that? Like, get whoever's interested, get language or get ideas or
I guess
something.
what would help is, like I said, we were sitting here, because I just have it on a list I have the bud and breakfast, farm, port, spas, hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
Not only providing those ideas, but kind of providing documentation or even kind of developing those ideas and writing those down and providing that to the board, so that when they do recommend it, it's like, oh, refer to Tim's letter, refer to Kim's letter, refer to Karen's letter, and then that way we have something to work with. It helps us out a bit more.
Yeah, so just let us know what you need, and we will try to do it. Because
And who is that talking? Who is that talking?
That was Kim.
Sorry, hi Hannah, it's Kim.
Okay, hi Kim.
What about
Okay,
the ranch
because
camp?
another person that you might want to also collaborate with is Tracy Wolfson. And she and somebody else has been doing a bunch of research on other language from other areas and what to support and what to not support.
So make sure you're directing that to the board, because
The letter to board. And then
departments are not really supposed to be giving direction to the board to give back to ourselves.
right. So I want to write a letter to the board with requests for
Canada
Canada Tourism, but what am I specifically asking for?
You're not necessarily asking, you're presenting ideas so that when they give PBS direction to consider Canada Tourism language, they can say, oh, refer to the ideas in Kim's letter.
Okay, and then not call anything fantasy. Fantasy. I will not use that word.
Fantasy.
I will not use that word. Yeah, that's not my background. I'll watch my language. Okay, and that's it. So, okay, cool. I don't know Tracy Wolfson. Hannah, thank you. I'll
All
try
right, well, talk to me offline, and I can get you her contact information.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
As well as I worked with Tracy and Michael Cass, and we did have a little ad hoc group that was making advice.
What?
Yes.
Yes, it's like pink.
But what I really had to feel how to do is to make sure we didn't suggest regulations.
Right, so keep that language out of there.
And so,
Okay.
I encourage networking. I'm good at that one.
Okay.
All right, well,
Thank you.
thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
When would go to the board of supervisors.
We're
Expecting movement.
I need to talk to Sarah. She's away this week. She comes back, I think, the next week. So I'll speak with her when she first gets back, and
Can you put out an email to us when that might be on the?
Yes.
All right, so she comes back around the 13th.
And so if we want to get on the June 11th.
Yeah.
I don't have to remember.
If it's the June 11th, I think we have to be there, we have to have everything ready by May 24th.
Is that possible?
We can try.
Okay, now I'm trying to figure out the timeline for a real reason, and so if we were to get it to, and this is where I found out that you guys, or where I didn't understand communication before, because I didn't really understand the whole process, and you were saying this is all we have to do. You were talking within planning and building, but I didn't realize there was 20 other steps possibly to have to do. So I'm trying to identify them.
Right.
So if we did get on the 6/11 Board of Supervisors meeting, so that would be when you're making your recommendation, and then they would give you direction, and then you would come back with that win for them to vote on it.
I think it would really depend on
The board. You'll have to speak with the board.
Yeah.
More information on board procedures.
And it might have to go to the planning commission, right?
I guess
most likely it will, because of how great the changes would be.
Okay,
Right.
and then
Significant.
after the board, you'd make recommendations, they give you direction, and then it would go to the planning commission, or would it have to go back to the board before it goes to the
Planning commission and then the board. And remember that there's noticing requirements, which do add some time.
Okay, and then after
And then when it comes back to the board, Karen, it's then, there's a first read, a second read, there's all kinds of time. So it's going to be a while before this is happening.
First read, second read, and then
it gets implemented 30 days later after the second read.
So you're saying we're not going to have an event policy in the summer?
Unfortunately, probably not during the summer.
Crap over.
I mean, y'all think y'all are tired, but most of us are doing this for free. We're tired. That's what it is, essentially.
Does anybody here who can give me a ride back to Powder Valley know what you want to? Julie got me here and is going to get me back there somehow, but does anybody else go in that direction or anything?
Not to Powder Valley.
I have the other way. Some other errands for a little while, and then I'm headed back.
Yeah, I told you I was willing to be patient. My friend in Redwood Valley would also take me home if we come to Redwood Valley. He's about a mile from the right up the street.
I can get you to Redwood Valley.
There you go.
I'm going north.
And then you and I will talk about NLSA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't mention that word.
Right, thanks.
Sorry, I'm covering some food poisoning.
Oh.